The snow was falling in thick, silent sheets as the battered sedan crept down the winding forest road, its headlights barely piercing the swirling white. Every mile seemed to pull them deeper into a world untouched by time, where the trees stood ancient and silent, their branches heavy with ice. In the driver's seat, Anna gripped the wheel with numb fingers, her breath fogging the cracked windshield. In the back seat, her daughter Sophie pressed her face to the glass, wide-eyed and silent, watching the world turn from gray to pure, endless white. They had been driving for hours, the city and its noise left far behind, replaced by the hush of winter and the promise of something, anything, better than what they'd left behind. Anna's mind raced with doubts. The letter from the lawyer had seemed like a cruel joke at first. A distant relative she'd never met, a house in the middle of nowhere, a deed with her name on it. But with nowhere else to go, no money for rent, and no one left to call, she'd packed what little they owned and set out for the only hope left. The directions had grown stranger with each turn. Left at the fallen birch. Continue until the road disappears. Look for the iron gate hidden by pines. Anna had almost missed it. A rusted archway, half buried in snow. The words, Evergreen House, barely visible beneath a century of moss and ice. She stopped the car, heart pounding, and stared at the house beyond the gate. It was larger than she'd imagined, a hulking silhouette against the white, its steep roof and tall windows rimmed with frost. The forest pressed close on all sides, as if trying to reclaim the clearing. The house looked both inviting and forbidding, its dark timbers and stone walls standing strong against the winter, but its windows reflecting nothing but the storm. Sophie's voice broke the silence. "Is this it, Mom? Is this our new home?" Anna forced a smile, though her stomach twisted with fear. "Yes, sweetheart. This is it." They stepped out into the snow, boots crunching on the frozen ground. The cold was sharper here, biting through their coats, making Anna's eyes water. She pulled Sophie close as they trudged up the path, the wind howling through the trees like a warning. The front door was heavy, carved with strange symbols, and the key from the lawyer's envelope fit perfectly in the lock. With a groan, the door swung open, releasing a breath of air that was somehow warmer than the world outside, but tinged with the scent of old wood, stone, and something else, something metallic, almost electric. Inside, the house was dark and silent, the only light coming from the snow glow through the windows. Furniture stood draped in white sheets, like ghosts waiting for the living to return. The air felt thick with secrets, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Anna set down their bags and listened. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, she thought she heard a faint, rhythmic sound, a pulse, a hum, or maybe just the settling of the old house. But as she looked around, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for them here. Something hidden, something precious, something that could change everything. She pulled Sophie into her arms, whispering a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. "We're safe now. We're home." But as the wind rattled the windows and the snow piled higher against the door, Anna wondered if the house was truly a refuge, or the beginning of a mystery that would test them in ways she couldn't yet imagine. It hadn't always been like this. There was a time, not so long ago, when Anna's world was filled with the ordinary chaos of school runs, grocery lists, and bedtime stories. She'd had a job she didn't love but could count on, a tiny apartment with peeling paint but a view of the city lights, and a daughter who believed the world was safe and full of possibility. But life, Anna had learned, could unravel with terrifying speed, and the safety nets she'd always assumed would catch her had holes she never saw coming. It started with the layoff. The company had been struggling for months, rumors swirling like autumn leaves, but Anna had clung to hope. She was good at her job, reliable, efficient, the kind of person who stayed late to help others finish their work. But when the pink slips came, her name was on the list. The severance was barely enough to cover a month's rent, and the job market was flooded with people just like her, hardworking, desperate, and invisible. At first, Anna tried to shield Sophie from the truth. She packed her lunches with a smile, walked her to the bus stop, and spent her days scouring job boards at the library. But as the weeks stretched into months, the bills piled up. The landlord's patience wore thin. The fridge grew emptier. Anna sold what she could, her mother's old jewelry, the TV, even Sophie's outgrown clothes. She told herself it was temporary, that something would come through, that she just needed a little more time. The eviction notice came on a Thursday, taped to the door in bold, impersonal print. 30 days. Anna read it 3 times before she let herself cry, silent tears in the bathroom while Sophie watched cartoons in the next room. She called every number she could find, friends, family, social services. But help was always just out of reach. Her parents were gone. Her brother lived 3 states away and barely scraped by himself. And Sophie's father was a ghost, sending the occasional birthday card, but little else. They moved into the car first, telling Sophie it was an adventure, a camping trip. Sophie was old enough to sense the truth, her eyes searching her mother's face for reassurance. Anna parked in church lots, behind grocery stores, anywhere they wouldn't be noticed. She learned which gas stations had clean bathrooms, which shelters had the shortest lines, and how to make a dollar stretch until it snapped. The hardest part wasn't the hunger or the cold, it was the shame. The way people looked through her, the way Sophie's laughter grew quieter, the way hope became a memory she could barely recall. Anna kept a notebook in her purse, scribbling lists of jobs, shelters, and dreams she was afraid to speak aloud. Every morning she woke before dawn, watching her daughter sleep, and promised herself she'd find a way out. One night, after a particularly cold rain, Anna sat in the front seat, her hands wrapped around a cup of gas station coffee, staring at the dashboard. Sophie slept in the back, curled under a pile of blankets. The radio played softly, a song from Anna's childhood, and for a moment, she let herself remember the girl she used to be. Fearless, full of plans, certain the world would bend to her will. She wondered what that girl would think of her now. It was in that moment, as she watched the rain streak the windshield, that her phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, the area code from a place she'd never been. She almost didn't answer, but something in her gut told her to pick up. "Hello, is this Anna Williams?" The voice was formal, practiced, but not unkind. "Yes, this is Anna. My name is Richard Evans. I'm an attorney with Evans & Price, representing the estate of Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood. I believe you're her granddaughter?" Anna's mind raced. She remembered her grandmother only vaguely, a quiet woman who'd sent Christmas cards with crisp $20 bills tucked inside. She'd lived alone, somewhere up north, a relic of another era. "I'm sorry to inform you that Mrs. Blackwood passed away last month. In her will, she named you as the sole beneficiary of her property in Pine Hollow. I know this is unexpected, but if you could call my office, we can discuss the details." Anna hung up, her hands trembling. She stared at the phone, then at her sleeping daughter, and felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in months, possibility. She called the number the next morning, her voice shaky as she spoke to the lawyer. He explained that the property was a house deep in the forest, left to Eleanor by her own parents decades ago. It wasn't much, he warned, but it was paid off, and the taxes were current. If she wanted it, it was hers. The next days were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and cautious hope. Anna scraped together enough for gas, packed what little they had left, and pointed the car north. She told Sophie they were going on an adventure, that they'd have a place to call their own. Sophie asked if there would be a bed for her, if she could have her own room. Anna promised she'd do her best. As they drove, Anna's mind spun with questions. What would they find? Was it even safe? Could she turn a frozen, forgotten house into a home? But beneath the fear was a stubborn thread of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, this was the break they needed. The journey was long, the miles ticking by in a blur of highway signs and rest stops. They sang songs, played games, and watched the landscape change from city to countryside to the lonely stretches of forest that marked the edge of the world. At night, Anna lay awake in motel beds, listening to her daughter breathe, and dared to imagine a future where they belonged somewhere again. By the time they reached the snowbound road that led to the house, Anna was exhausted but determined. She gripped the steering wheel, her heart pounding with fear and anticipation. Whatever waited for them beyond that iron gate, it had to be better than what they'd left behind. And as the house loomed into view, stark and silent against the white sky, Anna whispered a silent prayer for strength, for luck, for a chance to start over. She didn't know what secrets the house held, or how it would test her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. But as she looked at her daughter, her face pressed to the window, she knew she'd do whatever it took to give them a home, even if it meant facing the ghosts of the past, the darkness of the unknown, and the weight of a legacy she'd never asked for. Anna sat in the driver's seat, the engine idling as the snow continued to fall, her hands resting on the steering wheel. The house loomed before her, half shrouded in mist and ice, its windows dark and inscrutable. Sophie was quiet in the back seat, hugging her knees to her chest, her breath fogging the glass. The silence between them was heavy, filled with the unspoken fears and fragile hopes that had carried them this far. Anna's mind raced with questions. Was this really a chance at a new beginning, or just another dead end? The lawyer's words echoed in her memory. It's not much, Miss Williams. Just an old house in the woods, but it's yours, free and clear. She tried to picture what not much meant in the context of their lives. Was it better than the backseat of a car? Better than the endless shuffle from shelter to shelter, the constant fear of being turned away. She thought of the nights spent parked behind supermarkets, the mornings spent washing up in gas station bathrooms, The way Sophie had stopped asking for sleepovers. The way Anna had started to dread the sound of her own phone ringing. But this was different. It was a place, a structure, a roof. It was also a relic of a time when families built homes to last generations, when secrets could be buried as deep as the roots of the forest. What would it mean to raise her daughter in a place built for survival, not for living? What would it do to them, to her, to call a house like this home? She stepped out of the car, boots crunching on the snow, and walked to the front gate. The iron was cold beneath her hand, the paint flaking away to reveal scars of rust. She pushed it open, the hinges shrieking in protest, and peered up the path. The snow was deep, but someone, her grandmother maybe, or a caretaker long gone, had once laid stones beneath the drifts. Anna could just make out their shapes, leading the way to the front door. She returned to the car, her mind racing. She thought of the risks, the isolation, the unknown dangers, the possibility that the house was uninhabitable. She thought of Sophie, her need for stability, for friends, for sunlight and laughter. She thought of herself, of the exhaustion that clung to her bones, the hope that flickered and threatened to go out. Was she strong enough to do this? Was she foolish to even try? Sophie's voice broke the silence. "Mom, are we staying here?" Anna turned, meeting her daughter's gaze in the rearview mirror. She saw fear there, but also trust. A trust that Anna would do what was best, that she would keep them safe. Sophie waited, her small hands twisting the hem of her coat. Anna took a deep breath and opened the car door. She walked around to Sophie's side, opened the door, and knelt in the snow. "I don't know what this place will be like," she said softly. "It's not what I imagined, but it's ours. We can make it work if we try. It won't be easy, but I think we can do it together." Sophie nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and excitement. Anna stood, drawing a deep breath. She walked back to the house, this time with purpose. She explored every room, making mental lists of what needed fixing, what could be salvaged, what might be possible. She found a small wood stove in the kitchen, dusty but intact. There were water pipes, frozen but unbroken. The walls were thick, the windows heavy with old glass. It was safe, at least from the world outside. She returned to the car one last time, gathering their few belongings. She carried Sophie's backpack, her own duffel, the bag of groceries, and the battered suitcase that held everything they owned. Together, they crossed the threshold, stepping into the unknown. That night, as they huddled together on the floor of the main room, Anna listened to the wind howl outside and felt, for the first time in months, a fragile sense of hope. The house was cold and empty, but it was theirs. It was a chance to build something new, to reclaim a future that had seemed lost. Anna lay awake long after Sophie had fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling, her mind filled with plans and worries and dreams. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring or what secrets the house might hold. But she knew this. She had chosen to stay, to fight, to hope, and that, she realized, was the first step towards something better. The first morning in the old forest house arrived with a silence so deep it felt almost sacred. Anna woke to the pale blue light of winter filtering through frosted windows, her breath visible in the cold air. Sophie was still asleep, curled beneath a pile of blankets, her cheeks flushed with the effort of keeping warm. For a moment, Anna let herself believe they were safe, that the worst was behind them. But as she sat up, the reality of their situation pressed in from all sides. The house was colder than she'd imagined possible. The ancient radiators were silent, and the only warmth came from the small wood stove in the kitchen, which Anna had managed to coax to life with the last of the firewood stacked by the back door. She wrapped herself in her coat and boots, then set out to explore, determined to understand what they were up against. The house was a labyrinth of rooms and hallways, each one colder and darker than the last. The main floor held a parlor with a grand, dust-covered piano, a dining room with a table long enough for a dozen guests, and a library lined with shelves of books whose spines had faded to illegibility. Every surface was coated in a fine layer of dust, and the air smelled of old paper, wood smoke, and something metallic Anna couldn't quite place. She found the kitchen surprisingly well stocked. The pantry filled with jars of preserves and canned goods, some so old their labels had peeled away. The refrigerator was unplugged, but the cold was enough to keep their meager groceries from spoiling. Anna made a mental note to ration everything carefully. She didn't know when they'd be able to get to town again, or if the road would even be passable once the snow deepened. Upstairs, the bedrooms were just as she'd left them the night before, beds stripped bare, closets empty except for a few moth-eaten coats and a trunk of linens that smelled faintly of lavender and cedar. The bathroom was functional, though the pipes groaned in protest when Anna turned the tap. She let the water run until it cleared, grateful for the small mercy of indoor plumbing. Sophie woke mid-morning, shivering but eager to explore. Together, they moved from room to room, Anna pointing out the quirks and charms of their new home. "This was probably the nursery," she said, showing Sophie a small room with faded wallpaper and a rocking chair by the window. "And this must have been the master bedroom. Look at that view." But the house was not without its dangers. The floors creaked ominously in places, and Anna found a section of hallway where the boards had rotted through, revealing the dark crawl space below. She marked it off with a chair, warning Sophie to stay away. In the basement, she discovered a maze of storage rooms, some filled with old furniture and trunks, others empty except for the echo of their footsteps. The air down there was colder still, and Anna felt a prickle of unease as she moved through the shadows. The hardest part was the isolation. The forest pressed close on all sides, the trees so dense they blocked out the sun by mid-afternoon. The nearest neighbor was miles away, and the only sounds were the wind in the branches and the occasional crack of ice shifting on the roof. Anna checked her phone. No signal. The landline in the kitchen was dead, the wires chewed through by time or animals. They were truly alone. As the day wore on, Anna set to work making the house livable. She swept floors, aired out the bedrooms, and started a fire in the parlor's massive stone fireplace. Sophie helped where she could, her small hands red with cold but eager to please. They hung blankets over the windows to keep out the drafts and piled every spare quilt and coat onto their makeshift beds. By evening, the house felt a little less alien, a little more like home. Anna cooked a simple meal of soup and bread, and they ate by candlelight, the flickering flames casting long shadows on the walls. Sophie told stories about the forest, inventing tales of magical creatures and hidden treasures. Anna listened, grateful for her daughter's imagination, for the way she could find wonder even in the bleakest circumstances. That night, as they huddled together in the parlor, Anna listened to the wind howl outside and felt a strange sense of peace. The house was still cold, still full of secrets and challenges, but it was theirs. For the first time in months, Anna allowed herself to hope that they could make it work, that they could build a life here, in this frozen, forgotten place, and turn it into a home. The first week in the old forest house was a test of endurance, resourcefulness, and faith. Anna quickly learned that survival in this frozen world was not just about shelter from the elements, but about facing a new set of dangers and doubts that threatened to unravel her fragile hope. The cold was relentless. No matter how many fires Anna built, the warmth never seemed to last. The house was vast, and the heat from the wood stove and fireplace barely reached beyond the rooms they occupied. Anna rationed the firewood, but the pile dwindled faster than she'd expected. She bundled Sophie in layers of sweaters and blankets, but still the child's lips turned blue in the mornings, and her hands were always cold to the touch. Anna's own fingers grew cracked and raw, and her joints ached from the chill that seeped into her bones. Food was another constant worry. The pantry's jars and cans were a blessing, but Anna knew they wouldn't last forever. She made careful lists, planning meals with the precision of a field general, stretching every crumb and drop. The nearest town was a 2-hour drive on a good day, and the snow made the road nearly impassable. Anna tried to keep her anxiety from Sophie, but the child noticed the way her mother's eyes lingered on the emptying shelves, the way she measured out portions with a trembling hand. The isolation began to wear on them both. Days passed without seeing another soul. The forest was beautiful, but it was also a prison, the trees pressing close, the silence broken only by the wind and the occasional distant crack of a branch. Anna tried to keep Sophie occupied, reading books, playing games, inventing stories, but the child grew restless, her laughter fading as the days grew shorter and the nights longer. It was during one of those long, dark nights that the first real danger appeared. Anna was awakened by a strange sound, a deep, groaning creak that seemed to come from the very bones of the house. She sat up, heart pounding, and listened. The sound came again, louder this time, followed by a sharp crack. She grabbed a flashlight and crept into the hallway, her breath clouding in the cold air. The floorboards beneath her feet felt different, softer, as if something had shifted below. In the morning, Anna discovered the source of the noise. A section of the parlor floor had buckled, the old wood warped and splintered. She knelt to inspect it, and found that the ground beneath had shifted, likely from the freeze and thaw of the earth. The damage was worse than she'd feared. A gaping crack ran the length of the room, and when she pressed on the boards, they gave way, revealing a dark, icy void below. Anna's heart sank. She had no idea how to fix something like this. No money for repairs, and no one to call for help. The next day brought another setback. Anna ventured outside to gather more firewood, only to find the shed nearly empty. The previous owner must have stocked it for a single person, not a family trying to survive a brutal winter. Anna tried to chop more wood from the fallen branches around the property, but the axe was dull, and her hands were clumsy with cold. She worked until her arms ached, but the pile barely grew. That evening, as Anna struggled to light the stove, Sophie came to her, eyes wide with worry. "Mom, what if we run out of wood? What if we can't stay warm?" Anna forced a smile, but inside, fear gnawed at her. "We'll be okay, sweetheart. I promise." But the promise felt hollow. The challenges weren't just physical. The emotional toll of their isolation and hardship began to show. Sophie grew quiet, her usual curiosity dulled by the monotony of their days. She missed her friends, her school, the routines of their old life. Anna tried to keep her spirits up, but she too felt the weight of loneliness pressing in. At night she lay awake, listening to the wind and the creaks of the house, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. Then came the first sign of hostility from the outside world. It happened on a gray afternoon, when Anna decided to brave the road to town for supplies. The drive was treacherous, the car slipping and sliding on the icy track. When she finally reached the small general store, she was met with wary stares. The woman behind the counter, bundled in layers, eyed Anna with suspicion as she rang up the groceries. "You're the one who moved into the old Blackwood place, aren't you?" she asked, her tone flat. Anna nodded, trying to sound cheerful. "Yes, that's us. I'm Anna, and this is my daughter, Sophie." The woman's lips pressed into a thin line. "That house has been empty for years. Folks around here say it's cursed. Bad things happen to people who stay there too long." Anna tried to laugh it off, but the words stuck with her. As she loaded the groceries into the car, she noticed a group of men standing by the gas pumps, watching her. Their conversation stopped as she approached, and one of them spat on the ground, his eyes cold. "Best be careful out there," he said. "Winter's hard in these woods." Harder for outsiders. Anna drove home with her heart pounding, the groceries rattling in the back seat. She tried to hide her fear from Sophie, but the child sensed it. That night, as the wind howled and the house creaked, Anna lay awake, wondering if the townspeople's warnings were more than just superstition. The days blurred together, each one a battle against the cold, the hunger, and the growing sense of unease. Anna found herself jumping at every sound, checking the locks twice before bed, and keeping the axe close at hand. She started to notice things she hadn't before. Footprints in the snow that didn't match her own, the faint smell of smoke on the wind, the feeling of being watched when she ventured outside. One evening, as Anna was bringing in firewood, she found a note pinned to the front door. The paper was damp, and the handwriting shaky, but the message was clear. "You don't belong here. Leave while you still can." Anna's hands shook as she read it. She looked around, but the forest was silent, the snow undisturbed. She tore the note down and stuffed it in her pocket, forcing herself to act normal for Sophie's sake, but the fear lingered. Anna began to question every decision she'd made. Was she putting her daughter in danger by staying? Was the promise of a home worth the risk? The house, once a symbol of hope, now felt like a trap, its secrets pressing in from all sides. The final blow came when Sophie fell ill. It started with a cough, then a fever that wouldn't break. Anna did her best, bundling her in blankets, making tea from the herbs she found in the pantry, reading stories to distract her from the chills. But the nearest doctor was hours away, and the road was impassable with snow. Anna sat by her daughter's side, holding her hand, praying for the fever to break. As the days passed, Anna's hope began to fade. She felt utterly alone, cut off from the world, powerless to help the person she loved most. She thought of her grandmother, of the generations who had lived and died in this house, and wondered if she was strong enough to survive. But just as Anna was about to give in to despair, a new sound broke the silence, a faint, rhythmic tapping from somewhere below the house. At first, she thought it was her imagination, the product of too many sleepless nights. But the sound persisted, growing louder, more insistent. Anna followed it through the house, down the creaking stairs, into the cold, dark basement. There, in the far corner behind a stack of old crates, she found a section of wall that sounded hollow when she knocked. The tapping seemed to come from within, as if something or someone was trying to get her attention. Anna's heart pounded as she pressed her ear to the wall, listening. The sound was unmistakable now, a pattern, a message. She didn't know what it meant, or what she would find if she kept searching, but in that moment, Anna felt a flicker of hope, a sense that the house was trying to tell her something, that the answers she needed were hidden just beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. And as the wind howled outside and Sophie slept fitfully upstairs, Anna made a silent promise. She would not give up. She would fight for her daughter, for their future, and for the truth buried in the heart of the frozen forest house. Whatever secrets the house held, she was determined to uncover them, even if it meant risking everything. The tapping in the basement haunted Anna for days. Each night, after Sophie finally drifted into a feverish sleep, Anna would creep down the creaking stairs, flashlight in hand, and press her ear to the cold stone wall. Sometimes the sound was there, steady, deliberate, almost like Morse code. Other times only silence greeted her, broken by the distant groan of the house settling in the frost. She tried to convince herself it was just the pipes, or the wind, or her own exhaustion playing tricks. But deep down, Anna knew the house was trying to tell her something. On the third night, Anna decided to investigate further. She moved the crates aside, revealing a patch of wall that looked subtly different from the rest. Less worn, the mortar newer, the stones set in a slightly different pattern. She tapped along the surface, listening for a hollow echo, and her heart leapt when she found it. There was a space behind the wall, she was sure of it. But how to get through? She searched the basement for tools, finally settling on a rusted crowbar she found in the old coal bin. With careful, determined effort, she pried at the edges of the stonework. The work was slow and grueling, her hands numb with cold. But at last, one stone shifted, then another, until she'd opened a small gap just wide enough to reach through. Inside, her fingers brushed against something smooth and cold, a metal box. Anna's breath caught as she pulled it free, dust and cobwebs trailing from its corners. She carried it upstairs, setting it on the kitchen table beneath the flickering light. Sophie, pale but curious, watched from her nest of blankets. "What is it, Mom?" "I don't know yet," Anna whispered, her hands trembling as she worked the old latch. The box creaked open, revealing a stack of yellowed papers, a leather-bound journal, and a bundle of faded photographs tied with string. Anna opened the journal first. The handwriting was elegant, looping, and old-fashioned. The first page was dated January 1942. "To whoever finds this, know that this house was built on secrets. My name is Henry Blackwood, and I have done things here that must never be forgotten, nor ever be repeated." Anna's eyes widened as she read on. The entries spoke of the war, of men arriving in the dead of night, of shipments hidden in the forest, of a basement shelter constructed beneath the house, deeper than the visible cellar, accessible only by a hidden door. The journal described how Henry, an engineer by trade, had been recruited by the government to design a shelter that could withstand anything: bombs, fire, even the passage of decades. He wrote of gold, crates of it, delivered under armed guard, sealed away in the shelter as a hedge against catastrophe. If the world falls, this gold will help rebuild it. But if peace endures, let it remain hidden, a secret kept for the good of all. Anna's hands shook as she turned the pages. The later entries grew more paranoid. Henry wrote of strangers in the woods, of threats and warnings, of a promise to his family that the secret would die with him. The final entry was dated 1957. "If you are reading this, then the world has changed. Trust no one. The key is in the old clock. The door is beneath the stairs." Sophie, sensing her mother's excitement, sat up. "What does it mean, Mom?" Anna tried to explain, her voice hushed. "I think there's another room in the basement, a shelter, and something important is hidden there." They spent the next day searching the house for the old clock. It was Sophie who found it, tucked away in the library behind a stack of books. A heavy brass mantel clock, its face cracked but still ticking faintly. Anna turned it over and found a small compartment in the base. Inside was a tarnished brass key, cold and heavy in her palm. Armed with the key and the journal's clues, Anna returned to the basement. She examined the space beneath the stairs, running her hands along the rough stone. At last, her fingers found a seam, a hairline crack in the mortar. She pressed, and a section of the wall shifted, revealing a narrow door, almost invisible in the gloom. The key fit perfectly. With a deep breath, Anna turned it, and the door swung open on silent hinges. A rush of cold, stale air greeted her. She shone her flashlight into the darkness, revealing a steep set of steps descending into the earth. The walls were lined with concrete, the air thick with the scent of metal and dust. Anna hesitated, fear warring with curiosity, but Sophie's small hand slipped into hers, steady and brave. "Let's go, Mom," she whispered. Together, they descended into the hidden shelter. The room at the bottom was larger than Anna expected, its walls lined with shelves and crates. In the center stood a table, and on it a map of the property, marked with cryptic symbols and notes in Henry's handwriting. Anna's eyes darted around the room, taking in the details. The heavy steel door at the far end, the ventilation shafts, the emergency supplies stacked neatly in the corners. But it was the crates that drew her attention. Each was stamped with a government seal and a date from the 1940s. Anna pried one open, her heart pounding. Inside, nestled in straw, were gold bars, dozens of them, gleaming dully in the flashlight's beam. Anna gasped, her mind reeling. The journal had been telling the truth. The fortune was real. As Anna and Sophie explored the shelter, they found more clues, documents detailing the gold's origins, letters from government officials, and a ledger listing names and dates. The story that emerged was one of wartime fear, of desperate measures taken to protect the nation's wealth, of a family sworn to secrecy for generations. But the discovery brought new fears. Anna remembered the warnings in the journal, the threats from the townspeople, the feeling of being watched. She realized that others might know about the gold, that the danger was far from over. The house's secrets were now her burden, and she would have to decide how to protect them and her daughter from those who would do anything to claim the fortune for themselves. That night, as Anna sat by the fire, the gold bars stacked on the table before her, she felt the weight of history pressing down. The house had given up its secrets, but at a cost. The mystery had deepened, and the stakes had never been higher. Anna knew that the hardest choices still lay ahead, and that the true test of her courage was only beginning. The discovery of the hidden shelter and the gold changed everything for Anna, but it also brought a new kind of fear. She knew she couldn't keep such a secret forever, not in a town as small and insular as Pine Hollow, where every newcomer was noticed and every rumor spread like wildfire. The next morning, Anna woke early, her mind racing with questions. Who could she trust? Who might already suspect that the old Blackwood house was more than it seemed? Her first instinct was to keep Sophie close and avoid town, but the fever had left her daughter weak, and Anna knew she needed medicine and fresh food. She bundled Sophie in layers and drove the treacherous road to the general store, her heart pounding with every mile. The same woman was behind the counter, her eyes sharp and curious. Back again so soon? She asked, her tone softer than before. How's the little one? Anna hesitated, then decided on honesty. She's been sick. I could use some advice. Do you know a good doctor nearby? The woman's expression softened. I'm Martha. My sister's the nurse at the clinic in town. I'll call ahead for you. She rang up Anna's groceries and added a jar of homemade soup to the bag. On the house. Winters are hard here. We look out for each other, even if we don't always show it. Anna felt a wave of relief. Maybe not everyone in Pine Hollow was an enemy. As she left, she noticed one of the men from the gas station watching her from across the street, his arms folded, his gaze cold. Anna hurried Sophie into the car and drove away, the sense of being watched prickling at her skin. That afternoon, Martha stopped by the house with her sister, Nurse Ellen. They checked on Sophie, offered advice, and left behind a bag of medicine and a promise to return. If you need anything, you call us, Ellen said, her voice firm. Don't let the old stories scare you. This house has always been a part of Pine Hollow, even if folks like to pretend otherwise. But not everyone was so welcoming. The next day, Anna found muddy boot prints on the porch and a second note, this one more direct. You don't know what you're sitting on. Leave before it's too late. That night, she heard a car idling at the end of the driveway, headlights cutting through the trees before vanishing into the darkness. Anna double-checked the locks and kept the crowbar close at hand. The tension in town grew. At the post office, a man Anna didn't recognize cornered her by the mailboxes. You're the new owner, right? Blackwood's granddaughter. His voice was low, almost friendly, but his eyes were calculating. That house has a history. People say there's more to it than meets the eye. You planning to sell? Anna shook her head, trying to keep her voice steady. It's just a house. I'm not going anywhere. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Everyone's got a price. Remember that. Word spread quickly that Anna had no intention of leaving. Some neighbors kept their distance, whispering behind her back. Others, like Martha and Ellen, became unexpected allies, dropping off food, firewood, and advice. Anna learned to tell the difference between genuine kindness and curiosity laced with greed. One evening, as Anna was bringing in wood, she found a stranger waiting by the gate. He was older, with a weathered face and a badge clipped to his coat. Sheriff Dalton, he introduced himself. Just checking in. Folks around here get nervous when the old Blackwood place is occupied. You settling in all right? Anna nodded, wary. We're managing. He studied her for a long moment. You let me know if you have any trouble. This town's got its share of busybodies, but most folks mean well. Still, if anyone gives you a hard time, you come to me. Anna thanked him, but as he walked away, she wondered if the sheriff was truly on her side, or just another set of eyes watching, waiting to see what she would do. As the days passed, Anna realized that the house's secrets were not just hers to bear. The gold, the shelter, the history, they were all tied to the community, to old wounds and old ambitions. Some people wanted to help, others wanted to profit, and a few would do anything to claim the fortune for themselves. Anna knew she couldn't face it all alone. She leaned on Martha and Ellen, grateful for their friendship. She kept Sophie close, teaching her to be careful with strangers and to trust her instincts. And every night, as she locked the doors and checked the windows, Anna promised herself that she would protect her daughter and their new home, no matter what enemies might be lurking in the shadows of the frozen forest. The days grew longer, the snow outside the old forest house beginning to melt in patches. But inside, Anna's anxiety only deepened. The gold in the shelter was both a blessing and a curse. She barely slept, haunted by the fear that someone would come for it, or that she'd make a wrong move and lose everything. She kept the secret from everyone, even Martha and Ellen, but the weight of it pressed on her, making every creak of the house and every shadow in the woods feel like a threat. One evening, as Anna was sorting through the documents from the metal box, she noticed something she'd missed before. Tucked inside the journal was a folded piece of parchment, brittle with age. On it was a series of numbers and symbols, arranged in a pattern that looked almost like a puzzle. At the bottom, in Henry Blackwood's careful script, was a single line: "For those who seek, the answer lies where time stands still." Anna stared at the words, her mind racing. She thought of the old clock in the library, the one that had hidden the key to the shelter. Was there more to it? She hurried to the library, Sophie trailing behind her, curiosity piqued by her mother's sudden urgency. The clock sat on the mantel, its hands frozen at midnight. Anna turned it over, searching for anything unusual. She remembered the numbers from the parchment and began to press the clock's brass numerals in the order they appeared. With a soft click, a hidden compartment popped open at the base. Inside was a small brass key, different from the one that had opened the shelter. Sophie's eyes widened. "Another key, Mom?" Anna nodded, her heart pounding. "I think so, but to what?" They returned to the basement, the air colder than ever. Anna examined the shelter, searching for a lock that matched the new key. At the far end of the room, behind a stack of crates, she found a section of wall that looked slightly different, smoother, newer stone, as if it had been repaired or replaced. She ran her hands along the surface, feeling for a seam, and her fingers caught on a tiny indentation. She inserted the key and turned. With a low, grinding sound, a panel in the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passageway descending even deeper into the earth. Anna shone her flashlight into the darkness, her breath catching in her throat. The passage was lined with stone, the air thick with the scent of earth and secrets long kept. Sophie clung to her mother's side, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "Should we go in?" Anna hesitated, every instinct screaming caution, but the thought of answers, of finally understanding the full truth of the house and its legacy, was too powerful to ignore. "We'll go together," she said, squeezing Sophie's hand. They stepped into the passage, the walls closing in around them. The floor sloped downward, the air growing colder with each step. At the end of the corridor, they found a heavy iron door, its surface etched with the same symbols from the parchment. Anna pressed the key into the lock and turned. The door creaked open, revealing a small chamber beyond. Inside, the room was lined with shelves, each one stacked with ledgers, maps, and more gold bars, far more than Anna had found in the shelter above. But what caught her eye was a large leather-bound book resting on a pedestal in the center of the room. She opened it, her hands trembling, and found page after page of detailed records, not just of the gold, but of the people who had hidden it, the deals struck in secret, the promises made and broken over generations. The final pages were written in Henry's hand. "If you have found this, you are the last of us. The gold is yours to protect, but its true value lies in the truth it represents. Use it wisely. Do not let greed or fear guide you. Remember the cost of secrets and the power of hope." Anna stood in the secret room, the weight of history and possibility pressing down on her. She realized that her family's fortune was not just in gold, but in the choices she would make from this moment on. The discovery was a turning point, not just for their survival, but for their future. As she and Sophie climbed back up to the shelter, Anna felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, but now it was joined by determination. She would not run. She would not hide. She would face whatever came next, armed with the truth and the knowledge that she was not alone. The house had given up its greatest secret, and now, at last, Anna was ready to claim her place as its guardian. The days after Anna and Sophie's discovery were filled with a strange, electric hope. Anna felt lighter, more purposeful, as if the house itself had finally accepted them. She made plans: how to secure the gold, how to document everything, how to quietly seek legal advice without drawing attention. But just as she began to believe they might truly have a future here, the world outside their frozen sanctuary closed in. It started with a knock at the door one evening, just as the sun was setting behind the trees. Anna's heart leapt into her throat. She peered through the frosted glass and saw Sheriff Dalton standing on the porch, his breath clouding in the cold. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood the man from the post office, the one with the calculating eyes, and two others Anna didn't recognize, their faces hard and closed. Anna opened the door a crack, her body blocking Sophie from view. "Evening, Sheriff. Is something wrong?" Dalton's voice was gentle, but there was a tension in his jaw. "Mind if we come in, Anna?" We need to talk. Anna hesitated, but the men pushed past her, filling the entryway with the scent of snow and leather. The man from the post office spoke first. We know about the gold. You think you can just waltz in here and keep it for yourself? That house belongs to this town. To all of us. Anna's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb, he snapped. We've been watching you. We know you found something down there. You're not the first to try and claim Blackwood's secret. Sheriff Dalton stepped between them, his voice low. Let's keep this civil. Anna, these men represent some of the old families in Pine Hollow. They believe the gold is part of the town's legacy. There's talk of legal action, of contesting your right to the property. Anna's hands shook. This was my grandmother's house. She left it to me. I haven't done anything wrong. The third man, older and heavier, sneered. Maybe not yet. But you will if you try to take what isn't yours. We're prepared to make things very difficult for you, Anna. You and your daughter. The threat hung in the air, heavy and unmistakable. Anna felt Sophie's small hand slip into hers, trembling. She drew her daughter close, her mind racing. She thought of the gold, the secret room, the journals. Everything she'd worked so hard to protect. It could all be taken from her just like that. The men left as quickly as they'd come, but the damage was done. Anna spent the night pacing the house, checking the locks, peering out into the darkness for headlights or shadows moving among the trees. She barely slept, haunted by the knowledge that she was no longer safe, that the house was no longer a sanctuary. The next morning, the real blow fell. Anna woke to the sound of shattering glass. She rushed downstairs to find the kitchen window broken, icy wind howling through the gap. On the table was a rock wrapped in a piece of paper. The message was simple. Leave now, or next time it's fire. Anna's hands shook as she cleaned up the glass, her mind spinning with fear and anger. She called Martha and Ellen, desperate for advice, but even their voices were strained. You need to be careful, Anna, Martha warned. There are people in this town who will do anything to keep that gold from leaving. Maybe you should think about leaving just for a while. But Anna knew she couldn't run. Not now. Not after everything she and Sophie had survived. She tried to keep up a brave face for her daughter, but the fear was always there, lurking in every shadow, every creak of the house. Then, as if fate wanted to test her resolve, disaster struck. Sophie, still weak from her illness, slipped on the icy steps outside and fell hard, hitting her head. Anna's scream echoed through the trees as she rushed to her daughter's side, blood staining the snow. She carried Sophie inside, her hands shaking, her heart pounding with terror. For a moment, she thought she might lose her only reason for fighting, for staying, for hoping. Anna worked through the night, tending to Sophie's wound, praying for the fever not to return. She felt utterly alone, cut off from help, surrounded by enemies and haunted by the weight of her choices. The gold, the house, the legacy, it all seemed meaningless compared to the fragile life of her child. As dawn broke, Anna sat by Sophie's bedside, exhausted and afraid. She realized that she might lose everything. The house, the gold, even her daughter. The darkness pressed in, threatening to swallow her whole. But as the first light crept through the window, Anna made a silent vow. She would not give up. She would fight for Sophie, for their home, for the right to choose their own future. No matter what the town, the enemies, or the past threw at her, she would not let the darkness win. The house had tested her, broken her, but it had also revealed her strength. And as Anna watched her daughter sleep, she knew that the darkest hour was not the end, but the moment before the dawn. The storm that had battered the forest for days finally broke, leaving the world outside the old house glazed in ice and silence. Anna sat at Sophie's bedside, exhaustion etched into every line of her face, but as the morning sun crept through the window, she saw color returning to her daughter's cheeks. Sophie's breathing was steady, her fever gone. Relief washed over Anna, fierce and overwhelming. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to hope. But the threats from the townspeople, the broken window, and the rock with its chilling message haunted her. Anna knew she couldn't hide forever. The gold was both a blessing and a curse, and the secret shelter beneath the house was no longer just a mystery. It was a lifeline, and possibly their only chance at survival. That afternoon, with Sophie resting, Anna returned to the basement. She moved quietly, every sound amplified by her nerves. The hidden door behind the stairs was still ajar from her last visit, the cold air seeping out like a warning. She descended the narrow steps, flashlight in hand, heart pounding. The passageway felt different now, less like a tomb, more like a threshold. At the bottom, Anna paused, remembering Henry Blackwood's words, "The gold is yours to protect, but its true value lies in the truth it represents." She pressed on, entering the secret chamber. The air was thick with the scent of earth and metal, and her breath fogged in the cold. She moved to the crates, her hands trembling as she pried one open. The straw inside was brittle with age, but beneath it gleamed the unmistakable luster of gold. Anna lifted a bar, its weight shocking, its surface stamped with a government seal and a date from the 1940s. She counted the crates, dozens of them, each filled with gold bars. Each one a silent testament to the secrets the house had kept for generations. Anna's mind reeled. She tried to calculate the value, but the numbers became meaningless. It was more money than she could ever spend, more than she could even imagine. But as she looked around the room, she realized the gold was only part of the legacy. The shelves were lined with ledgers, maps, and documents, records of the gold's origins, lists of names, letters from government officials, and Henry's journal, chronicling the decisions and sacrifices that had led to this moment. She sat at the table in the center of the room, opening the leather-bound book she'd found on the pedestal. The final entries were written in a shaky hand, but the message was clear. If you have found this, you are the last of us. The gold is not just for you. It is for those who come after, for the rebuilding of what is lost, for the hope that endures even in the darkest times. Guard it well. Use it wisely. And remember, the greatest fortune is not in gold, but in the courage to do what is right. Tears filled Anna's eyes as she read. She thought of her grandmother, of the generations who had lived and died in this house, of the sacrifices made to keep this secret safe. She thought of Sophie, sleeping upstairs, and the future she wanted to build for her, a future free from fear, from hunger, from the shadows of the past. Anna spent hours in the shelter, documenting everything. She took photos of the gold, the documents, the journals. She made copies of the most important records, hiding them in different places around the house. She knew she would need help, legal advice, protection, maybe even the authorities. But she also knew she had to be careful. The gold was a target, and there were people in Pine Hollow who would do anything to claim it. As evening fell, Anna returned upstairs, her mind racing with plans. She called Martha and Ellen, asking them to come by. When they arrived, Anna told them everything about the shelter, the gold, the threats, and her fears. Martha listened in stunned silence, then hugged Anna fiercely. "You're not alone," she said. "We'll help you. We'll protect you and Sophie. This town has its secrets, but it also has good people. We'll find a way." With their support, Anna felt a new resolve. She contacted a lawyer in the nearest city, explaining the situation as best she could without revealing too much. The lawyer agreed to help, promising discretion and advice on how to secure the gold and protect her rights. Anna also reached out to a historian at the State University, sending copies of the documents and asking for help in verifying their authenticity. Word spread quickly, as it always did in small towns. Some neighbors came forward with offers of help, while others grew more hostile, their jealousy and suspicion barely concealed. But Anna stood firm. She had the law on her side, the support of her friends, and the truth of her family's legacy. The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and careful planning. The lawyer helped Anna set up a trust to protect the gold, ensuring that it would be used for Sophie's future and for the good of the community. The historian confirmed the document's authenticity, and soon, news of the discovery reached the authorities. Federal agents arrived, their questions sharp but respectful, and Anna showed them everything: the gold, the records, the journals. In the end, the government claimed the gold, citing its origins and the need to preserve history. But Anna was not left empty-handed. She received a substantial reward for her honesty and cooperation, enough to secure her and Sophie's future. More importantly, she kept the journals, the documents, and the story of her family's courage, a legacy that could never be taken away. As winter melted into spring, Anna stood on the porch of the old forest house, watching Sophie play in the sunlight. The house was no longer a place of fear and secrets, but a home, warm, safe, and filled with hope. The gold had changed their lives, but it was the truth, the courage, and the love they had found that would endure. Anna knew there would always be challenges, always be shadows at the edge of the forest. But she also knew that she and Sophie had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. The secret shelter had given up its treasure, and in doing so, had given them a new beginning. A future built not on gold, but on the strength of their hearts. The days after the gold's discovery were unlike anything Anna had ever known. The house, once a place of cold and uncertainty, now felt alive with possibility. Anna moved through its rooms with a new sense of purpose, her steps lighter, her heart unburdened by the constant fear that had shadowed her for so long. Sophie, too, was changed. Her laughter returned, echoing through the halls as she played in the sunlit rooms, her cheeks rosy and her eyes bright with hope. But with the gold came decisions, ones that weighed heavily on Anna's mind. The fortune was staggering, but so was the responsibility. The journals and documents made it clear This was not just a windfall, but a legacy. The gold had been hidden for a reason, meant to be a safeguard for the future, not a prize for the present. Anna knew she could not simply sell everything and disappear. The story of the house and the people who had trusted her family deserved to be honored. The first transformation was practical. With the help of her lawyer, Anna established a trust to secure the assets and ensure that Sophie would always have a home. She used a portion of the funds to repair and modernize the house, installing proper heating, plumbing, and electricity. The once drab rooms became warm and inviting, filled with light and color. She created a bedroom for Sophie, a kitchen where they could cook real meals, and a study where Anna could work and keep the records safe. But Anna's vision extended beyond her own family. Inspired by the stories in Henry Blackwood's journal, she reached out to local charities and shelters, offering anonymous donations to help families facing the same hardships she had endured. She funded scholarships for children in the community, supported the local clinic, and worked with Martha and Ellen to create a food pantry for those in need. The house's legacy of hope was no longer a secret. It became a force for good, rippling outward to touch lives far beyond its walls. The transformation was also personal. Anna found herself growing in confidence, her voice stronger when she spoke at town meetings or advocated for others. She became a fixture in the community, not as the outsider who lived in the old Blackwood house, but as a neighbor, a friend, and a leader. Sophie thrived at her new school, making friends and excelling in her classes. The house, once a symbol of isolation, became a place of gathering and laughter. Yet, even as their lives improved, Anna never forgot the lessons of the past. She kept the secret room secure, sharing its story only with those she trusted completely. She continued to study the documents and artifacts, working with historians and archivists to preserve the knowledge for future generations. The house became a place of learning, a living museum where the past and present met, and where the values of courage, resilience, and compassion were passed on. One evening, as the family sat together in their newly renovated home, Anna looked at Sophie and felt a deep sense of peace. They had come so far, from the edge of despair to a place of safety and hope. The journey had been hard, marked by loss and fear, but it had also revealed strengths they never knew they possessed. The wealth they had found was not just in gold or artifacts, but in the love they shared, the community they had built, and the future they could now shape. Sophie snuggled close, her voice soft. "Do you think Great-Grandpa Henry would be proud of us?" Anna smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "I think he hoped we would find all this, and I think he trusted us to do the right thing." Sophie grinned, holding up a drawing she'd made of the house as a castle. "We're like the Guardians now, right, Mom?" Anna hugged her heart full. "Yes, baby, we're the Guardians, and we'll make sure this place is always a home, for us and for anyone who needs it." The transformation was complete, but the journey was far from over. The family had found not just a fortune, but a purpose. And as they looked to the future, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger, wiser, and forever changed by the secrets they had uncovered and the hope they had restored. As the seasons changed and the snow melted from the forest's edge, Anna's choices began to ripple outward, shaping not only her family's future, but the very heart of Pine Hollow. The transformation of the old house from a place of secrets and survival into a beacon of hope became a story that spread quietly at first, then with growing momentum, as more people learned of the kindness and generosity that flowed from its doors. Anna's decision to use the gold for good did not go unnoticed. The food pantry she helped establish with Martha and Ellen became a lifeline for struggling families, its shelves always stocked and its doors always open. The scholarships she funded sent local children to college, some the first in their families to ever dream of such a thing. The clinic, once threatened with closure, flourished with new equipment and staff, all made possible by anonymous donations that everyone soon guessed came from the woman in the Blackwood house. But the impact was more than financial. Anna's story, her resilience, her refusal to give up, her willingness to share what she had found, became a quiet inspiration. People who had once kept their distance now stopped by with casseroles, tools, or simply to say, "Thank you." Sophie was welcomed into the fold, her laughter and energy breathing new life into the town's school and playgrounds. The family that had once been homeless and alone was now at the heart of a community, their journey a testament to the power of hope and the strength found in helping others. Anna never sought recognition. She kept the details of the secret room closely guarded, sharing its history only with those she trusted and with the historians who helped her preserve its legacy. The artifacts and documents were carefully catalogued, some donated to museums, others kept safe for future generations. The story of the Blackwood house, and the network of ordinary people who had risked everything to safeguard hope became a chapter in the town's history, one that would be told and retold for years to come. Yet, for all the good that came from the discovery, Anna knew that the true legacy was not in the gold or the artifacts, but in the choices she made every day. She taught Sophie that wealth was a tool, not a goal, that kindness was a currency more valuable than any coin, and that the greatest treasures were the bonds they built with others. The house, once a place of hiding, was now a place of gathering, a home not just for her family, but for anyone in need of shelter, comfort, or a second chance. As word of the family's journey spread beyond Pine Hollow, people from neighboring communities began to visit, drawn by curiosity and the hope of finding inspiration for their own lives. Some came seeking help, others simply to see the place where a single act of courage had changed so many lives. Anna welcomed them all, her door always open, her story always shared with humility and gratitude. And so, the legacy of the house grew, not as a monument to the past, but as a living promise for the future. Anna's choices had created a ripple effect, touching lives she would never know, inspiring acts of kindness she would never witness. The family's journey from homelessness to hope became a beacon for anyone who had ever felt lost, alone, or afraid to dream. As the sun set over the forest and the lights of the house glowed warmly in the dusk, Anna stood at the entrance, Sophie at her side. She looked out at the world, her heart full of gratitude and wonder at how far they had come. She knew there would be challenges ahead, there always were, but she also knew that together they could face anything. And to anyone watching, anyone listening, anyone wondering if hope was still possible, Anna's story offered a simple, powerful call to action. Don't give up. The world is full of hidden doors and second chances. Sometimes the greatest treasures are found in the darkest places. And sometimes, the choice to open a door, no matter how heavy, can change everything. If you've been moved by this story, don't let it end here. Reach out, help someone in need, or take a chance on your own hidden potential. The next chapter of hope could begin with you.